This is authentic archival footage from a General Motors factory in the 1950s. Back then, a brand new Chevrolet cost around $2,500. As you can see, workers inside American automobile factories dressed in style back then. Wages were only about $4 an hour, yet many of these factory workers were able to support a family and afford a home and a car on a single income. Right now, you're watching car bodies being welded by hand. Meanwhile, in another part of the factory, car engines are being manufactured. Inside this General Motors Norwood plant, Chevrolet Impalas and Corvairs were built from start to finish. This plant was a key center of American automotive manufacturing throughout much of the 20th century. In operation from 1923 until its closure in 1987, it played an important role in the growth and development of the U.S. auto industry. When it first opened, the facility employed about 600 workers and was capable of producing up to 200 vehicles per day, an impressive level of output for its era. During the 1960s, the Norwood plant gained particular prominence for building some of Chevrolet's most iconic models, including the Impala, Nova, and Camaro. By the early 1970s, the plant had reached its peak, employing nearly 9,000 workers and playing a major role in the production of more than 8 million vehicles over the course of its operation. This machine measured dimensions with extremely high precision, down to 1/10,000th of an inch, minimizing human error and delivering consistent, reliable results in manufacturing. Sub-assemblies were produced in dedicated sections of the plant or in nearby feeder lines and then supplied to the main assembly line in a just-in-time or sequenced flow. Key components such as seats, dashboards, door panels, wiring harnesses, and instrument clusters were often fully pre-assembled before being installed in the vehicle. The 1960s Chevrolet Impala, a flagship model produced at Norwood, stood out for its durability and straightforward repairability. When properly maintained, these vehicles could stay dependable for many years, helping to secure their enduring reputation among classic car enthusiasts today. This stage of production, known as the marriage, is when the vehicle's body and chassis are joined into a single unit. It's called this because major components such as the engine, transmission, drive shaft, axles, and fuel tank are installed together in one coordinated step, rather than being added separately at different stages. At this General Motors facility, models such as the Chevrolet Biscayne, Caprice, Camaro, Pontiac Firebird, and Buick Apollo were also produced. The assembly line depended on precise timing, close coordination, and strong organization to ensure a smooth and efficient workflow. For decades, General Motors was the largest automaker in the United States and held the position of the world's biggest automaker for 77 years, until it was surpassed by Toyota in 2008. In earlier years, the main production line required a much larger workforce, before advances in automation and robotics gradually reduced the need for manual labor. At this stage, factory workers can be seen working in coordination to install the front hood on each vehicle. The American workers are dressed in jeans and shirts, reflecting the practical, everyday work attire of the factory floor. The assembly process resembled a giant jigsaw puzzle, with each component carefully fitted into place until a complete car emerged. After assembly and initial startup, the Chevrolets were driven through a large water spray test, much like those used in modern factories today. In 1968 alone, Chevrolet built approximately 710,000 Impalas, helping the brand reach a total production of about 2.1 million vehicles across all models that year. Once running, models like the Chevrolet Impala were dyno tested to check engine performance and ensure all driver controls functioned properly. With proper maintenance and regular care, Many of these vehicles can reach 200,000 miles or more, and in some cases last even longer. This is authentic footage of workers entering a Chevrolet factory in the 1950s. You are now seeing the early stage of the automobile manufacturing process, where large steel sheets are stamped and pressed into the body panels that will later form the structure of each vehicle. This is one of the most critical steps in production, as it shapes the foundation of the car's design and durability. In 1955, Chevrolet achieved remarkable success in the American auto industry, selling over 1.7 million vehicles. This put them ahead of Ford by roughly 250,000 units and marked a major moment in Chevrolet's return to market leadership during a highly competitive era in automotive history. Before the rise of automation, human labor was at the heart of car manufacturing. Skilled factory workers played a crucial role in every stage of production, often taking pride in the craftsmanship and attention to detail that went into each vehicle they assembled. These mid-1950s Chevrolets contained around 13,000 individual parts. By comparison, modern vehicles can include more than 35,000 components, reflecting how dramatically automotive engineering and complexity have evolved over time. In this footage, you can also see how factory workers handled the processing and quality inspection of glass, carefully checking each piece before it was installed, ensuring it met the standards required for production. During this era, manufacturing tolerances were less uniform than they are today, meaning there was noticeably more variation between individual cars. As a result, each Chevrolet had its own subtle differences, making every vehicle feel closer to a unique hand-finished product rather than the highly standardized machines we see in modern production lines. Chevrolets were produced across a wide network of General Motors plants throughout the United States, with major manufacturing hubs in states such as Michigan, Ohio, and Missouri. This distributed production system allowed GM to supply vehicles efficiently to dealerships nationwide, while also helping to reduce transportation and logistics costs by positioning factories closer to key markets and suppliers. By the mid-1950s, the United States had become the largest automobile market in the world, with annual production exceeding 7 million vehicles. The industry at the time was overwhelmingly dominated by the big three automakers, General Motors, Ford, and Chrysler, which together accounted for roughly 95% of all car sales in the country. Each vehicle was the result of a vast coordinated supply chain. Individual components were manufactured in specialized factories across the nation, then transported to final assembly plants, where they were brought together to form a complete automobile on the main production line. Thanks to strong labor unions, many General Motors employees in this era were able to earn enough to support a family, often affording a home and a car on a single income, an important hallmark of mid-century American industrial prosperity. Although automation was gradually being introduced, much of the production process remained highly labor-intensive. Skilled workers were essential in key stages such as stamping, welding, painting, and final assembly, where precision and experience still mattered as much as machinery. The industry also operated under the model year system, where car designs were updated annually. This created a constant cycle of stylistic changes, requiring expensive retooling of factories and generating ongoing consumer demand for the newest designs. Large manufacturers like GM and Ford were able to absorb these costs, while smaller independent automakers often struggled to keep up, one of the factors behind their long-term decline. Even in the 1950s, women were part of the automotive workforce, though they represented only about 10% of factory employees at the time, compared to roughly 25% in more recent decades. It is worth noting that, for the purposes of this documentary, some scenes are stylized or reconstructed, and the reality on the factory floor may have varied. The 1950s stood as a pivotal decade for American manufacturing, defined by rapid post-war expansion and major technological progress across industries. Inside these factories, Chevrolet after Chevrolet was built by hardworking Americans, assembled step by step on the production line, each vehicle the result of coordinated effort and industrial precision. More broadly, manufacturing played a central role in the U.S. economy, driving production not only of automobiles, but also of appliances, electronics, and heavy machinery that fueled the country's post-war growth. This footage shows how large automotive engines were carefully transported using overhead cranes and then precisely lowered into the chassis frame, one of the most critical and physically demanding stages of vehicle assembly. In the next step, workers mount the wheels onto the chassis and prepare the vehicle for body installation, gradually transforming individual components into a complete automobile on the production line. At the time, the American factory workforce was largely made up of young men, many in their early 30s. Today, the demographics of manufacturing labor are far more diverse, reflecting broader social and economic changes over the decades. Interior materials such as seat fabrics, vinyl textiles, and carpets were dyed and finished at the material production stage before ever reaching the assembly plant. Maintaining strict color consistency across multiple suppliers was essential, as even slight variations would be noticeable once installed in the finished vehicle. General Motors faced significant challenges in ensuring that interior components, seats, door panels, and carpeting all match precisely in color and tone, requiring careful coordination across its supply chain. In this scene, you are witnessing American workers manually assembling engines inside a Chevrolet factory, step by step, turning raw components into finished machines on the assembly line. At the General Motors Norwood assembly plant, models such as the Chevrolet Impala and Chevrolet Corvair were produced throughout the 1960s, reflecting the era's distinctive design language and engineering priorities. Before the widespread adoption of automation, human labor was central to every stage of car manufacturing. Workers took pride in their craftsmanship, seeing each completed vehicle as the result of their skill and effort. In the 1950s, Chevrolet offered so many factory options that buyers could essentially build their own car, choosing everything from engine size to interior trim. Because of this, two Chevrolet cars coming off the same assembly line could look and perform completely differently. In 1963, 1 out of every 10 cars sold in the United States was a Chevrolet. During the 1960s and early 1970s, the regular Chevrolet, especially the fancy Impala, became one of the best-selling cars in U.S. history. For the full-size Chevrolet alone, there were 5 engines, 5 transmissions, 7 body styles and 3 trim levels, 14 exterior colors, dozens of interior fabrics, and an almost endless list of luxury and performance options. This footage shows how seat fabrics, vinyl upholstery, and carpeting were carefully dyed and finished at specialized textile facilities before being shipped to the assembly plant, where they arrived fully prepared for installation inside the vehicles. At the end of the production process in the 1950s, finished vehicles were commonly transported by rail and by ship to reach dealers and export markets across the country and overseas. At the same time, production itself was highly distributed. Individual components and subassemblies were moved between multiple General Motors factories, each specializing in specific parts of the manufacturing process. In a single year, 1959 alone, General Motors produced an extraordinary total of around 600,000 Chevrolet vehicles. This massive output reflects the scale and efficiency of American automotive manufacturing at the time, when production lines were operating at full capacity to meet strong domestic demand and growing export markets. During this period, the United States experienced strong economic growth, rising suburban living, and expanding highway networks. Cars were no longer just transportation. They became a central part of daily life and identity. Chevrolet, as one of the most popular brands under General Motors, played a major role in this shift. Models like the Chevrolet Bel Air, Impala, and later the Corvair became closely associated with the image of post-war prosperity, family road trips, drive-in culture, and suburban mobility. In the 1960s, Chevrolet car marketing focused mainly on the product itself, highlighting features like horsepower, design changes, size, and mechanical reliability through straightforward TV, radio, and print ads, aimed at a broad audience with an optimistic and factual tone. Chevrolet ads today focus on lifestyle and emotions using digital targeted storytelling.
something about a false religion.
So this is the rarest archival footage I'll show you today. A complete Edsel car factory tour. Total Edsel sales were about 116,000 units, far below the company's projected break-even volume. Edsel was a division of Ford Motor Company. It wasn't a separate company, but a brand developed to sit between Ford and Mercury in the lineup. The brand was named after Edsel Ford, the son of Henry Ford. Edsel cars stood out for their distinctive vertical grille and styling, which people either loved or disliked. It became one of their most talked about features. Edsel is often cited as one of the most well-known product failures in automotive history due to its high development cost and low sales. Despite its reputation, many Edsel models shared reliable components with other Ford vehicles. It was more a failure of marketing, timing, and positioning than engineering. Because of its rarity and story, Edsel cars are now appreciated by collectors and classic car enthusiasts. The Edsel didn't have its own dedicated factory. Instead, it was produced across several existing plants owned by Ford Motor Company, which was part of the problem behind the brand's troubled launch. Production was spread across multiple Ford facilities in the United States, including plants in Dearborn, Louisville, and... Right now, you're watching the production of the rare Chevrolet Corvette ZR-1, one of the most advanced American performance cars of its time. In 1992, only 502 of these high-performance machines were built at the Bowling Green assembly plant, making it an exceptionally limited part of that year's lineup. By comparison, total Corvette production for 1992 was around 20,000 units, which highlights just how exclusive the ZR-1 really was. What truly set it apart wasn't just rarity, it was the price and performance. The ZR-1 package added roughly $31,000 to the cost of a standard Corvette, nearly doubling the base price and placing it firmly into exotic car territory. This is what a brand new 1960 Chevrolet Impala Sport sedan and Corvair looked like out on the road. During development in the 1960s, Chevrolet put its vehicles through rigorous testing in both extreme heat and bitter cold. What you're seeing here takes place inside a specialized environmental chamber, built to simulate those harsh temperature conditions. Prototype cars underwent extensive climate testing, with chambers capable of recreating everything from scorching desert heat to freezing winter extremes. These conditions were essential for evaluating how engines, transmissions, and materials performed under thermal stress. Engineers closely monitored every detail, from cold starts and sub-zero temperatures to maintaining cabin comfort in intense heat. This is how cool Chevrolet advertisements were during that period. Beyond the lab, test vehicles were driven thousands of miles across rough terrain, mountain roads, and high-speed tracks to ensure durability in real-world conditions. Here, a front winch system is being put through its paces, tested for strength and reliability. In some cases, it proved powerful enough to lift the entire vehicle off the ground. By the early 60s, Chevrolet and its parent General Motors had already built a structured, multi-stage testing process, combining lab simulation and real-world driving. This is the Chevrolet El Camino. In 1959, only about 22,000 units were produced. Today, thanks to its rarity and distinctive styling, it's become a highly sought-after classic, with well-preserved examples typically valued between $10,000 and $19,000. In the late 1950s, American car culture was booming. People valued style, individuality, and practicality all at once. The El Camino was a unique response to that. It blended a passenger car's comfort and design with the utility of a pickup.
Please, for your father.